She told me she was leaving tomorrow, just like that, halfway through her coffee. The words didn't land all at once. They floated, soft and heavy, like the steam curling between us. I kept staring at her hands, the same hands that never stayed still, that always seemed to be searching for something invisible to fix, even now, tracing the rim of her cup like it held a secret. Her name was Elena. 45, maybe 46. The kind of woman who made silence feel intentional. I was 26, too young to understand her pauses but old enough to notice them. The cafe was nearly empty, evening light falling in through the windows, turning her hair, dark with threads of silver, into something softer than truth. "You're quiet," she said. Her tone wasn't a question. "I'm just thinking," I replied, though I wasn't sure what about. Maybe the way her voice always dipped a little lower when she said my name. Maybe the way she avoided it now. She smiled, a small, tired thing. "You always are." For a moment neither of us moved. The clock ticked behind her. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, sharp and ordinary, but in here, everything felt suspended, like if either of us spoke too loud, the world might hear what we hadn't said yet. "So," I managed, "tomorrow?" She nodded once, eyes on the window. "Early. Before the heat." There was a faint tremor in her fingers when she reached for the sugar, a gesture so practiced it almost hid the hesitation underneath. Almost. I wanted to ask where she was going, but the question stuck. She'd already told me once before, weeks ago. A new city, a new start, the usual script people use when they don't want to admit they're running. Instead, I asked, "Will you miss this place?" She looked at me then. Really looked. "I'll miss the quiet," she said. And after a heartbeat, "And you?" My chest tightened. Not because of what she said, but how she said it, like it slipped out before she could pull it back. Like maybe she regretted the honesty the second it hit the air. I laughed softly, to keep it from meaning too much. "That's dangerous to say." Her lips curved, almost a smirk. "Then don't make it mean more than it should." But the way she glanced down, the way her thumb brushed against the side of her cup, it already did. The cafe lights flickered once, and the world seemed smaller. I noticed how her perfume clung faintly to the fabric of her coat, something floral and faded, how her breath caught when our hands touched while reaching for the same napkin. Neither of us pulled away right away. Her skin was warm, and for a second, I forgot that there was a tomorrow she was leaving for. "Elena, don't," she whispered. Not harsh, just soft enough to make the words sting. "Please." "Not tonight." Her eyes lingered on mine, and I swear there was something there, regret, fear, maybe both. Then she looked away, gathering her things too slowly, as if speed might make it hurt less. The door behind us creaked open. A gust of evening air slipped in, cold enough to wake me. She stood, smoothing her scarf. "Walk me home?" I nodded before I even thought. Outside, the streetlights hummed to life. She didn't look back, and I followed, close enough to feel the warmth from her coat, far enough not to make her notice. And I kept thinking, if she was leaving tomorrow, I had tonight. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to make her remember. Variant, standard, title, She told me she was leaving tomorrow. So I gave her something to remember me by, Part 2. ID, 97432. The walk to her apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with everything left unsaid. Our footsteps echoed on the pavement, uneven, like we couldn't agree on the same rhythm. Every now and then she'd glance toward me, then away, as if she was checking to see if I was still there, or if she hoped I wouldn't be. When we reached her building, she hesitated at the door. The yellow porch light cast her face in warmth, softening the fine lines around her eyes. "You don't have to come up," she said, but she didn't move to unlock the door either. "I know," I murmured. The pause stretched too long to be casual. She sighed barely, then turned the key and stepped inside. I followed, closing the door behind me. Her apartment smelled faintly of cedar and old books. A lamp burned low in the corner, throwing everything in amber light: the half-open curtains, the stack of records, the single mug on the counter. It looked like a place that had been packed away slowly, in pieces. "I thought you'd have more boxes," I said. "I pack light," she replied, slipping off her coat. "Easier that way." Her hair fell loose against her neck, and she caught me looking. "You always stare," she said, not unkindly. I flushed. "You always make it hard not to." A flicker of something passed through her, not anger, not exactly. Maybe it was recognition. "You're too young to mean that the way you think you do." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just mean it differently." She didn't answer. Instead, she crossed to the kitchen, filling the kettle. Her movements were slow, deliberate, every gesture a kind of armor. I watched the way her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the cups. "You ever been in love?" she asked suddenly, not looking at me. I almost laughed, but it came out small. "Once. It didn't end well." Her voice softened. "They rarely do." I wanted to ask about her story, the ring she still wore on a chain, the way she always checked her phone but never answered it, but I didn't. I already knew she wouldn't tell me. Some people talk by what they don't say. She handed me a cup. Our fingers brushed. It wasn't deliberate, but neither of us moved right away. The touch felt heavier than it should have, quiet, electric, uninvited. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered. "How am I looking? Like you're about to do something foolish." "Maybe I already did." She smiled, faint but real. Then she stepped closer, so close that I could feel the warmth of her breath near my collarbone. She reached up, brushing something invisible from my shirt, a small, unnecessary gesture that lingered too long. Her eyes met mine, steady and unreadable. "You'll regret this someday," she said softly. "Only if you make me forget it." The kettle whistled sharply, breaking whatever that moment was becoming. She turned away quickly, but not before her hand brushed mine again, this time slower, deliberate. We stood there in the low light, the air between us trembling with everything we weren't saying. And for the first time, I didn't try to fill the silence. Variant, standard, title, She told me she was leaving tomorrow. So I gave her something to remember me by, part 3. ID, 97433. Rain started tapping against the window while the kettle cooled, a soft percussion that filled the silence between us. She hadn't turned on the lights, and the apartment was wrapped in a dim, honeyed half-dark. I could hear her breathing from the kitchen, steady but shallow. "Do you ever think about staying?" I asked finally. She froze mid-motion, her back to me. "You shouldn't ask questions you don't want the answers to." "Maybe I do," she sighed, turning slightly, her hands still resting on the counter. "Don't make this harder than it already is." Before I could answer, a sharp knock at the door cut through the room. She stiffened. My pulse kicked. "Elena?" A male voice, older, familiar, filtered through the wood. "You still up? Lights are on." Her eyes darted to mine. Panic flickered for a second, then she mouthed, "Don't move." She waited, quiet, until the footsteps outside faded down the hall. Only then did she exhale, shoulders slumping. "Who was that?" I whispered. "No one," she said too quickly. "A neighbor. He looks out for me." The lie sat there, obvious and fragile. I didn't press. She turned back toward me, her face softer now, the fear replaced by something like relief. "See? This is why." She stopped herself, shook her head. "This shouldn't be happening." I stepped closer. "But it is." Her breath caught as I said it. The space between us shrank until I could smell the faint trace of coffee on her skin, the ghost of her perfume, something warm, like sandalwood and memory. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered. "You won't." Her eyes lifted to mine, searching for belief. I could see every flicker of hesitation there, the weight of years, the things she'd lost, the pieces she didn't want to give away again. When I reached for her, she didn't move, just stood there as my fingers brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. Her lips parted slightly, not an invitation, not yet, but the kind of pause that feels like gravity. Don't, she said again, softer this time. We'll regret it. I swallowed hard. Then let's regret it tomorrow. She laughed, barely. The sound cracked a little. You really think it's that easy? No, I said. That's why it matters. Her hand lifted, tentative, trembling, and landed on my shoulder. It wasn't much, just the weight of her palm, but it felt like everything tilted for a heartbeat. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, sharp and insistent. She pulled away, reaching for it too fast. The screen lit her face. Her jaw tightened. Is it him? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. She set the phone face down, closing her eyes for a moment. You should go, she whispered. I don't want to. I know. Her voice was barely audible. That's what scares me. She turned away, pretending to busy herself with the cups, but when I stepped toward the door, she stopped me, fingers curling lightly around my wrist. We didn't speak. The rain pressed harder against the glass, filling the silence. She didn't let go right away, and neither did I. It wasn't a kiss. It was closer than that, the kind of stillness that hums with everything waiting to happen. Variant, standard, title, She told me she was leaving tomorrow. So I gave her something to remember me by. Part 4. ID, 97434. The rain hadn't stopped. It softened to a mist, clinging to the windows like breath against glass. Hours must have passed since the knock on her door, but time felt strange, stretched thin, humming between us like a wire ready to snap. Elena sat on the edge of the couch, shoulders drawn tight beneath a loose sweater. Her hair was slightly damp from when she'd cracked the window open earlier, the faint scent of rain caught in it. I stood near the bookshelves, pretending to study the spines while trying not to stare at the curve of her neck, the way her pulse moved there when she was thinking too hard. You're still here, she said finally. You didn't tell me to leave again. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Maybe I should have. I crossed the room slowly. Do you want me to? Her silence said more than any answer could. She lifted her gaze, and there it was again, that flicker between fear and something else she wouldn't name. I keep thinking, she began, her voice unsteady, that I should have met you years ago. Before everything got complicated. I sat beside her, close enough for our knees to touch. Maybe then I wouldn't have noticed you the way I do now. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing. The way you do now? I didn't back down. Like it's too late, and too early all at once. Her breath hitched, and she looked away, laughing softly in disbelief. You don't know what you're saying. Then tell me, I said, leaning in, my voice low. What am I saying? She met my eyes, a single, trembling glance that lasted too long. That you want something you can't keep. Maybe I just want a moment, I whispered. For a heartbeat, either of us moved. Her hand drifted to her hair, brushing it behind her ear, and I found myself reaching up to do the same. My fingers barely grazed her skin, but the contact burned. She didn't stop me. Elena, don't, she breathed, but she didn't move away either. Her eyes flicked to my lips and back. The air thickened. The city outside faded to a blur of wet pavement and flickering lights. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Because you'll be gone tomorrow. Her lips parted, a small sound escaping, half sigh, half protest. She leaned closer without meaning to, her hand resting against my chest like an anchor. I could feel her pulse through her palm, quick, uneven. I shouldn't, she murmured. I know. And yet she didn't pull back. Her forehead touched mine, light as breath. I could feel every inch of restraint between us trembling. Then a vibration. Her phone again, lighting the dark with someone else's name. She froze. I saw the guilt ripple through her before she could hide it. Elena. She shook her head, eyes glassy, voice breaking into a whisper. Don't make me choose. The screen kept glowing on the table, a reminder, a boundary, a door we hadn't opened yet. We stayed there, inches apart, caught between a kiss and a decision that could change everything. Variant, Standard Title: She told me she was leaving tomorrow. So I gave her something to remember me by. Part 6. ID: 97436. Her fingers lingered against my face, trembling just enough for me to feel the hesitation pulsing through them. Outside, a car door slammed again, closer this time. I could hear the sound of footsteps approaching the stairs. "Elena," I whispered. "If I go now, this ends like it never happened." She closed her eyes. "Maybe that's what it's supposed to be." Her voice said one thing, but her hand stayed where it was, on my cheek, her thumb tracing the edge of my jaw like she was memorizing it. "Then why are you shaking?" I asked. Her eyes opened, glassy, conflicted, too full. "Because I'm not that strong anymore." The knock came, hard and certain. Her name followed it, muffled but familiar. I could see the fear ripple through her, the panic trying to pull her backward, but something else rooted her there. "Elena, I can't pretend I don't feel this," I said, my voice rough, low. "Even if I should." "Don't," she murmured, stepping closer until our foreheads nearly touched. "Don't say it. If you say it, I won't be able to stop." Her breath was warm against my lips. The air between us thinned until it barely existed. I could feel her heartbeat through her chest, fast and uneven, matching mine. "I'm tired of stopping," I said. Her lips parted like she was about to answer, but the words never came. She just stood there, eyes locked on mine, pulse racing, her fingers tightening against my collar. The silence carried everything we couldn't speak aloud. Then another knock, louder this time, sharp enough to make her flinch. "Elena!" The man's voice called again. She stepped back, suddenly, too fast, too sharp. The absence of her touch hit like cold air. "You need to go," she whispered. I didn't move. "Please!" Her voice cracked. "If you stay, I'll ruin everything." Slowly, I crossed the space between us again. "Then ruin it," I said. Her breath caught, and for a heartbeat I thought she would. Her hand rose, hovering near my face, fingers trembling with indecision. Then, with a small, broken sound, she let it fall against my chest and stayed there, eyes glistening. "I can't," she whispered. "I already did." The doorknob rattled. Her eyes widened. She turned away, wiping at her face quickly, forcing her voice into calm. "Go," she mouthed, barely audible. I hesitated, every instinct screaming to stay. Then I stepped back toward the kitchen door, one last look catching the light across her face, the mix of longing, guilt, and something that looked almost like peace. Just before I slipped out, she spoke again, so quietly I almost missed it. "Don't forget me," she said. I paused, hand on the frame. I couldn't, even if I tried. The back door closed behind me, and the sound of it echoed through the rain, like the end of something neither of us wanted to name. Variant, Standard Title, She told me she was leaving tomorrow. So I gave her something to remember me by. Part 7. ID, 97437. The rain had stopped by the time I reached the corner of her street. The air still smelled of it, wet pavement, earth, something faintly sweet drifting from the bakery below her building. I didn't look back. I wanted to, but I didn't. That was yesterday. Now I stood in the same cafe where she'd first told me she was leaving. Her seat was empty, her cup gone, the imprint of her still there in the quiet. The barista asked if I wanted the usual. I nodded, though it didn't taste the same without her sitting across from me, stirring sugar she never used. The bell above the door chimed. I didn't turn right away. I didn't need to. Her perfume, faint sandalwood, rain, and something only she could wear like memory, drifted toward me before her voice did. "I thought you'd be gone by now," she said softly. I turned, and there she was, hair pulled back, travel bag slung over one shoulder, eyes tired but calm. "I thought you'd be halfway out of town," I replied. "I was." She hesitated. "But the train broke down." Then, quieter. "Maybe it wasn't just the train." I smiled, a little helplessly. You could call that fate. I don't believe in fate, she said, stepping closer. I believe in timing. And maybe this isn't bad timing anymore. We stood there, the hum of the cafe filling the spaces between our words. She looked different in the morning light, softer, almost unguarded. I realized I'd been waiting for that, not her apology, not her promise, just that look. Elena, I said, you don't know me anything. She reached out, brushing her fingers against my sleeve the way she always did when she didn't know what to say. Maybe I do. Maybe I owe you honesty. Then be honest. I wanted to leave, she said, her voice steady now. But not from you. From the version of me that was always running. You made me stop long enough to see it. Her hand found mine, fingers tentative at first, then sure. I felt the warmth bloom between our palms, quiet and grounding. No grand declarations, no promises, just presence. So what happens now? I asked. She smiled faintly, the kind that reached her eyes this time. Now? Maybe we stop trying to make sense of something that already does. We sat down, the same table as before. The light spilled through the window, soft and forgiving. She reached for my cup without asking, took a sip, made a face, and set it back down. I laughed under my breath, and she shook her head, smiling in that way that said everything words couldn't. No more running. No more maybe. Just us, two people who found something real in a world too fast to notice. She leaned in, close enough for her forehead to rest against mine. If I stay, she whispered, it's not because I have to. It's because I finally want to. And for the first time, there was nothing left to hide. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?